Genesis chapter 42, Divine Setup. Welcome back to Bible Breakdowns. Today we're diving into Genesis 42, where Joseph's dreams from years ago start to come true, and his brothers unknowingly walk straight into a divine setup. Let's get into it. The famine has hit hard, not just in Egypt but in the surrounding lands, including Canaan, where Jacob and his sons live. Jacob hears there's grain in Egypt and tells his sons, "Why are you just standing around? Go to Egypt and buy us food so we can survive." So 10 of Joseph's brothers head to Egypt. Benjamin, the youngest, stays behind because Jacob can't bear the thought of anything happening to him. Remember, Benjamin is the only other son of Rachel, and Jacob's still grieving the loss of Joseph. When the brothers arrive in Egypt, they bow before Joseph, who is now the governor in charge of selling grain. They don't recognize him. It's been years, and Joseph looks like an Egyptian official now. But Joseph recognizes them immediately. Instead of revealing himself, Joseph decides to test his brothers. He accuses them of being spies, which shocks them. They plead, "No, my lord, we're honest men. We're all brothers, the sons of one father. Our youngest brother is back home with our father, and one of our brothers is no more." That last part must have stung Joseph, but he keeps his cool. He insists they're spies and says they'll need to prove their honesty by bringing their youngest brother to him. He imprisons them for 3 days to let it all sink in. After 3 days, Joseph changes the terms. "One of you will stay here in prison while the rest return home with grain. Bring your youngest brother back to me to prove your story." The brothers start panicking. They say to one another, "This is punishment for what we did to Joseph. We saw his distress when he begged us, but we didn't listen. That's why this trouble has come on us." Reuben, the oldest, reminds them he had warned them not to harm Joseph all those years ago. They don't realize Joseph understands every word. They're speaking in Hebrew, and Joseph has been using an interpreter. Overwhelmed, Joseph steps away to weep, but he quickly composes himself. Joseph has Simeon bound before their eyes and keeps him as a prisoner. He sends the rest home with sacks full of grain. But here's the twist: Joseph secretly has their silver returned to their sacks. On the way back, one of the brothers opens his sack and finds the silver. They're terrified, thinking they'll be accused of stealing. When they reach home, they tell Jacob everything, including Joseph's demand to bring Benjamin. Jacob is devastated. He refuses to let Benjamin go, saying, "You've already taken Joseph and Simeon from me. If anything happens to Benjamin, it'll bring my gray head down to the grave in sorrow." Genesis 42 is a chapter filled with tension and emotion. Joseph is testing his brothers, but he's also seeing how much they've changed. Meanwhile, the brothers are grappling with guilt, and Jacob is clinging to his last shred of hope. This chapter reminds us of how God works behind the scenes to bring about his plans, even when we can't see the bigger picture. Stay tuned, because the story gets even more intense in Genesis 43.